Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Just how far can the Congolese prospect Martin Bakole go? Over the weekend he had the biggest win of his career to date, advancing to 12-1 after stopping Mariusz Wach in Poland. He was the away fighter, he turned up in shape, better shape than the Michael Hunter fight. He looked much better in this fight. The punches were crisp, the jab was on target. He looked more fleet of foot in there compared to the Michael Hunter loss back in October. And overall, it was a relatively dominant performance. Everything he was throwing was landing, and ultimately he stopped Mariusz Wach in the 8th round. Even though it was a good performance, a very good performance by Bakole, it's one of these situations where matchmaking is key, and I think the opponent here in Mariusz Wach, what he brings, it sort of flattered to deceive, because he looked all of his 39 years old, he couldn't get out of the way of the punches, zero head movement, and he was there like a walking heavy bag all night. Bakole just couldn't miss. And Mariusz Wach, big, lumbering, kind of like a much older version of Martin Bakole, but Bakole obviously is a much more noted puncher. In that fight against Michael Hunter, Bakole certainly had some shortcomings that he needed to address. The shape was one of them, the conditioning. He gassed in that fight later as it went on, and obviously he did get injured in that one too. But in this fight against Wach, he was able to dominate the action, control the pace, pace himself better through the fight so he didn't gas, and he landed a lot of punches, and Mariusz Wach would have been feeling that after that fight. One of the first times that Mariusz Wach has really been beaten up like that, but we have to temper celebrations with this win, because I've seen a lot of people sort of announcing that Martin Bakole is now back in the mixer, sort of approaching world level as a result of beating Mariusz Wach. They have him, you know, in their top 20, top 25, something like that. And for me, I just need to see more. I'm not sure how much we can really take from that Mariusz Wach fight, because that was the third fight in a row that Mariusz Wach had lost. He's clearly slowing down, clearly not as agile and athletic as he used to be, and he didn't really look sort of like the Wach of old. Although he's been, you know, slowing down for a while, that wasn't a great performance by Mariusz Wach, and there is a diminishing amount of credit they can have against the guy who continually loses. He's lost his last 3 and 4 of his last 6, and he hasn't had a win since 2017, so we have to keep it in perspective. But yeah, Martin Bakole, where to next? Because I look at sort of his performance and I think, okay, well, we've seen what he can do against a guy like Wach, who's, you know, one of the sort of taller guys in the division, 6'7". But, you know, that was a match made in heaven. A guy who, you know, slow, can't get out of the way, and ultimately that sort of fits right into Bakole's wheelhouse. I'm just not willing to go all in on Martin Bakole like some are now, just because I want to see another opponent similar to Michael Hunter to really know, has he learnt his lessons from the Michael Hunter fight, where he was made to look slow and lumbering. He was loading up on his shots, and ultimately he gassed out and didn't really put in a good effort. It was an upset performance, and I'm sure that would have humbled him to some extent, because heading into that fight, him and his trainer had been giving it the big one on social media. He was regarded as one of the top prospects coming through. There was a lot of hype and buzz building behind the scenes for Martin Bakole. Some of the gym stories, what he'd been doing to fighters around the UK, but all that sort of just went away with that loss to Michael Hunter, and that really was a sort of coming out party for Michael Hunter, where before he'd been at cruiserweight, sort of campaigning a bit under the radar for most fight fans, steps up to the heavyweight division and upsets Martin Bakole. Although the injury mid-fight, it played a part in that fight, but Martin Bakole looked poor relatively, you know, right throughout the fight. But going forward, what can we expect from him? Where is he really now in the context of the heavyweight division? I'm sort of thinking, I mean, Mariusz Wach was about top 50-ish, maybe top 40 at best. He certainly wasn't really high up many people's leaderboards. So does that mean that Martin Bakole is somewhere in or around that region now? Or is he a bit higher? Is Martin Bakole, on the strength of that performance and how dominant he was, is he more a sort of top 30 or so fighter? we need to see more and some more matchups within the top 50 or so to get a better gauge. But I'm not willing to sort of say, yeah, this guy is top 20. He is heading for a title shot down the line. I think we've seen enough flaws and frailties that needed to be worked on after that Hunter fight, just to give a bit of pause that it might take a few fights to see some progression. But if he's matched against these big, tall, lumbering sort of guys that can't get out of the way like Mariusz Wach, well, it's only going to go one way, and that's in his favour. So I think we probably will see some similar opposition in the next year or so. But I think a lot of fight fans would like to see him in with someone like a Hunter, not necessarily Hunter, but someone who can give him some movement, some different angles, make him think, make him work, but just not let him dictate the fight. Because Hunter was bringing it to him, coming at awkward angles. It was a high-risk strategy for what he was employing in that fight, but it was very effective. And ultimately, Bakole didn't really have an answer, finding fresh air most of the night. So I guess I'd like to see him in with someone of that ilk again, just to sort of see, have the lessons been learned. What about you? What do you make of Martin Bakole? What is his ceiling? How far can he go? And is he only going to look good against certain opponents? Is someone who can give him a bit of movement going to cause him issues again like Michael Hunter did? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.